In today's video, we're going to be covering the cost of moving to New Zealand. So if you're new in this journey and you're wondering how much is it going to cost me, this is the right video to watch. We're going to get into the nitty-gritties of visa fees, the cost of flights, the cost of learning in New Zealand. The first cost that you're going to be worried about is the main cost, which is the cost of visas. Once you've gone through your visa pathways and you've seen which visas you are applying for, you then need to go to the INZ website and check the processing times and the cost of those visas. I'm just going to mention a few of them, starting with the accredited employer work visa. At the moment, the cost for that is 1,540 New Zealand dollars to submit an application for that, and the processing time is showing as 6 weeks. So if you're going to be applying for that, that's how much you need to budget. And there is also additional fees if you're coming in with your family. The cost for a partner of a worker visa is 1,630 New Zealand dollars, and the cost for your dependent children is $341. So if you're coming in as a family, you need to factor in those costs. After you've gotten your work visa, you also need to think about the cost of residency. And at the moment, the cost of residency, this is a group application, so that includes your family and yourself in the application. The cost at the moment for skilled migrant category residency or the work to residency or the straight to residency pathway is currently at 6,450 New Zealand dollars. So that is a huge chunk of money to invest. But look at it this way, you don't need to get your residency right away. So once you get your work visa and you're already working in New Zealand and you've already done a few months or a few years and you have saved, you're able to pay for this amount for your residency. The next cost you need to think about is the cost of getting your qualifications assessed or registering with boards, professional boards. So depending on your qualification and what job you're applying for, and also when are you applying, because INZ keeps changing. They keep changing their rules. When I came in, I didn't need to do any qualifications assessment or register with any board. The cost for NZQA is usually around 450 New Zealand dollars to 700 New Zealand dollars, depending on what needs to be done. And then the cost for the engineering New Zealand boards is usually around $500 to 1,000 New Zealand dollars as well to get your assessment. So you just need to do some little bit of research and factor in those costs as well into your journey. The next cost you're going to want to think about is the cost of medicals. So for you to submit in your applications, you need to meet some health requirements. And for this, you need to go to a New Zealand panel doctor, and you can find this list on the Immigration New Zealand website. But once you go there, I think for most people, you need to submit some chest x-rays and some blood tests, and then you can get a medical certificate. And the cost of this does vary, but usually for Zimbabwe, I think the cost is like 100 US dollars for the chest x-rays, and then I think the total might come up to around 350 US dollars for you to complete the full medicals, and this costs are per person. So if you're a group application, you need to factor in this cost per person in the application. And I think for children, the cost might be less. The other cost that you may need to think about is the cost of police clearances. So for Zimbabwe, I think it's just less than $100 to get your police clearances. But for other countries, you may need to check how much it will cost. And just be mindful that if you've lived in more than one country in the previous 5 years, you may need to go back to those countries to get your police clearances. And also be mindful of the times that these might take. For Zimbabwe, I don't think it takes a long time, but I've heard stories of it taking taking a longer time in South Africa to get your police clearances. So it might be worth it while you are embarking on this journey, while you may be doing interviews and you haven't even secured a job offer yet, to do your police clearances in advance so that it doesn't hold you up once you get that job offer. Because remember, a police clearance is valid for like 6 months before you have to renew it. Next up, we have the cost of immigration advisors. So I do tell most people that you don't necessarily need to engage an immigration advisor if you can generally do research, if you can generally like follow the guidelines that are on the Immigration New Zealand website. You will be able to submit your own applications by yourself. I know a few people who have done that and they have done that successfully, just because like INZ does a really awesome job of providing all the information that you may need on their website, and they do an awesome job of updating their website regularly. But if you're wanting to engage an immigration advisor, the cost does vary. I think the average at the moment is the lowest from 1,000 New Zealand dollars, and they can go as high as tens of thousands, like as high as 10,000 for your application. So you just need to do your research and see which immigration advisor meets your needs. You can find the list of registered immigration advisors on the INZ website as well. So make sure you're using someone who is licensed and has a current registration, because someone might have been licensed and registered before, but at the moment they might not be current. So make sure to always go and double check on the INZ website if your immigration advisor is on there. Never ever trust immigration advice from random people. The next cost that you're going to be thinking about is the cost of shipping your item. In case you're wanting to ship a container, the costs do vary depending on which company that you use, but I think it roughly starts from around 5,000 New Zealand dollars to around 10 or 20,000 New Zealand dollars, depending on how big of a container you're using and how much stuff you're shipping. My advice on this one is to just do your research, like have a look at a few shops in New Zealand, what the cost is for furniture, and then have a look at what you already have and what you're wanting to ship over to New Zealand, and just do the weigh-in, do the pros and cons, see which one is better, to just come in with a few bags and then you restart from the ground, and then you just purchase all your furniture over in New Zealand. Or if you have valuable goods and valuable furniture, timeless furniture that you're wanting to ship over, look at the cost of shipping, see which one suits your family needs. So after all of that, how much is it going to cost flights? So for one-way tickets, it depends on the season, and it also depends on how far in advance you get to book your tickets. For most people, once we get a job offer, once the visa comes, we're ready to go. We're not going to be waiting months to book our visas in advance, because you also have a contract start date for your job. So I assume you would want to come in early. So because of that disadvantage, you're going to be paying more in terms of flights. The average cost for one-way tickets per person is usually 2,000 to around 5,000 New Zealand dollars, depending on the season and which websites that you're using. So the next thing on the list is the landing costs. Once you arrive in New Zealand, what's the cost of living in New Zealand and how much should you have saved? In general, once you land in New Zealand, you just need to be prepared for temporary accommodation, just because for most people, you're not going to be able to secure accommodation while you're still offshore. You will need to do viewings for most places in order to secure a rental. So unless you can find someone in New Zealand to do house viewings for you, then maybe you'll be able to secure a permanent rental before you come in. But for most of us, you're going to be looking at things like temporary accommodation. So just have the cost of Airbnbs factored into your planning, and just find out with your company if they are able to provide some temporary accommodation for you. Most companies will do that, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or however many weeks, anything that you can get that will help you to like settle while you look for permanent accommodation. The average time it might take to secure a permanent rental might be, I would say, 4 weeks to do viewings, to do your applications, and all of that. Also, depending on where you're moving to, the housing market might be really competitive. So you might just need to factor in a few weeks for you to settle in. The next thing that you might want to prepare for is transportation. The public system, yes, we do have buses, yes, we do have that, but I do find that it's not as efficient, if I might say, and it doesn't cover like all the parts. Like you can't get to every single place with public transportation. So you might also need to factor in the cost of Uber rides. You might need to prepare to get a car as soon as you land in New Zealand. And if you're wanting help with that, with securing a car, my husband and I, we help people like you to get purchase your first car while when you land to New Zealand, and get vehicle financing if you're wanting that, and it doesn't require deposit and no credit history required. So if you're wanting help with that so that we can have your car ready for you when you land, please feel free to reach out. The next things that you may need to think about is, when you're coming to New Zealand, you're coming with literally nothing. And when you're moving into your place, you will be wanting to buy everything from like blankets, utensils, everything. So you may just want to have a little bit saved up to cover for those costs as well. I would advise websites like Kmart, the warehouse, where you can get cheaper stuff, to just have a look and get a feel of how much it will cost you to get like kitchen stuff, or how much it will cost you to settle in, and just plan ahead for those items. Okay, so like you see, the process of moving to New Zealand can be really challenging and can be quite expensive, but I do believe with proper planning and careful research, you will be able to cut costs in some ways, in some areas. So if you're on this journey, I do hope this video has been valuable to you. Thank you so much for watching today. I do hope I see you in the next video. Stay blessed, everyone.